So good evening, everybody, and welcome to our February 2021. I always say it wrong because I'm having a hard time imagining that it is 2021. February 2021 celebration of Chamber Week. I would also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, no matter where you are in the Lower Mainland. I will take a few minutes to introduce our Langley Chamber Board of Directors, our VIPs and staff that are joining us this evening, so bear with me. Our president, Brad Kindle's on the call this evening, grabbing his takeout, I think, from somewhere. So he's moving right along with that. Our vice president, Ken Dennis Network of Companies. Pardon me, Brad's day job when he's not being harassed by the chamber, which is me, is Ashdown Capital Incorporated. Our past president, Jack Nicholson with Otter Co-op. Our community director from the city of Langley, Jenny Hinch with Lucid Water. Our community director with North Langley, Frank Buckholz. Our community director with Aldergrove, Michelle Burrows with the Aldergrove Credit Union, Director Brody McIntosh with Bromac Mechanical, and Director Chris Drisnoff with KSW Lawyers. Some of our elected officials joining us this evening, two of them you'll see on our screen, our newly elected MLA, Andrew Mercier for Langley, and our newly elected MLA, Megan Dykeman for Langley East. Joining us this evening on the call, Mayor Val Vandenbroek from the City of Langley, Councillor Rudy Stortenboom from the City of Langley, Councillor Terry James from the City of Langley, and Councillor Patrina Arneson from the Township of Langley. Joining us on the call this evening for myself and our team is Sumner McCauley with the Events and Communications Coordinator, and myself, CEO. I'm just going to go right into a few things for this evening. For tonight's dinner was the first night we started takeout pickup from one of your favorite restaurants. So I would like to acknowledge Moxie's Grill and Bar for sort of being our guinea pig and trying us out to let us try this new endeavor. Thank you to those of you who ordered through this plan, or if you just ordered takeout from one of your many local restaurants. They and us appreciate it. Hopefully when you do order, you can order directly from their delivery and skip the dish tax as well. So help out our local businesses that way. We are very pleased that this week is Chamber Week here in British Columbia. I've been celebrating this for 26 years now. So happy Chamber Week to all of you, our Chamber Network and family. It's time for us to celebrate the work we've done over the past year and looking back on some of the achievements are. For several years, we've worked with our partners and friends at the Langley Advanced Time to showcase the Chamber, and we want to take a special moment to thank them very much for a 12-page spread in this past week's newspaper. So you'll find that through our social media. The articles are online, all on the Langley Advanced Times, and in your actual print copy, which, of course, because my background you can't see, but there it is. So I really want to thank them and all of you that took time to advertise in that spread and to promote the work that the Chamber's done for the last year. We really, really appreciate your support and look forward to working with you over the next year to see what we can do to better our economy and our community. An upcoming events of interest. This week, your board is starting on its strategic planning. So if we're looking at providing a 3-year plan, COVID and beyond is what I want to put it as the title of the new strategic plan. I haven't had my way yet on that, but we'll see how it goes. And some of the items that they'll be covering off on is policy moving forward. What does our community need? So we'll be getting back to you with that plan once it's finished up. On the business education front, the BC Chamber Building Resilience to Thrive program, which is a $35 certificate program put through the BC Chamber and the Victoria School of Business, has been extended. We have 2 more cohorts. Originally, we only had 1 more cohort, and now we have a second one being added for May, June. So if you're interested, please let me know, because anybody that signs up and pays for the program and actually certifies for the program will give you your $35 back. So it becomes a free program for you if you're a Langley Chamber member. So sign up and take a look on our website. There's more information there. Upcoming webinars: self-employed, how to prepare for your next mortgage, how to get money to launch an online through the online grant program, LinkedIn, uncovering the power and prospecting and business development on LinkedIn, recruitment now, how to hire better, and our virtual networking social coming up on February 24th. Watch our social media platforms, check your inbox for further details on all of these and how to register. Now we're going to jump on to membership, and unfortunately our membership staff director could not be here tonight, so I'm stepping in for her. It's our pleasure to present the membership report. Now, this is reporting for 2 months because we did not meet. No, actually, this is the 1 month. Pardon me. We had added a few that just joined in December that did not make it onto here. Before I introduce the new members here this evening, I will advise you of the applicants who were unfortunately unable to join us. So that was Junction HVAC Limited, Tadashi Homes Limited, Power Earth Enterprises Incorporated, Caros Coaching Group, Vancouver Safety Surfacing Limited, and Burb Cannabis Corp. The members that were able to join us on the call this evening: with Peninsula Canada, Pierre Bornabas; with Customized Recruitment, Teresa Bolton; and with Métis Nation, British Columbia, Nick Hoyzadad. I would ask now if members could put a name in to first start a motion to accept the members as presented this evening, and then if I could have a seconder to that motion. And Sumner, could you grab that out of the chat box, as I'm screen sharing and cannot see the chat box at this time, please, and thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. We're talking about membership benefits. We, as a chamber and Chamber Week, we would not be where we are without the added bonus of being able to provide tangible benefits for our members. So just on the screen here now, you'll see some of our tangible benefits that are available to you as a member of the chamber. There are 3 full slides, and I don't think we managed to get, I think we got almost every logo on here, but this is just to give you an idea of the different types of services available to you for your chamber membership. Everything from HR to Teledoc to MindReader, where we get you to give our input that we then in turn give back to our MLAs and our provincial government to help move forward on policies and procedures. So there's lots of opportunities, including a great health insurance plan. So if you're looking for more information on any of these benefits, please contact myself or anybody else in my office, and we'll be happy to help you. It is now my pleasure to introduce the president of the Chamber of Commerce, Brad Kendall. Brad gives a lot of his time to the chamber, and we really appreciate it. This week I'm taxing him quite a bit, so I really appreciate him taking the time out. So Brad, over to you.
Thanks, Colleen, and thanks everyone for joining us today on Chamber Week. This is our opportunity to showcase all that we do in our community, as well as the ongoing work at the provincial and federal levels. For those that didn't see the announcement, when we talk about advocacy pretty well every month. It comes up in my report. So we were extremely pleased to see the announcement with the Highway 1. So when it comes to a chamber, why the chamber? Why are we here for the chamber? Because we are the voice of business in Langley. It is our job to advocate on behalf of our business community, not just our members, but the entire community. So as I said, just today, the province announced that the public consultation for Highway 1 widening from 216th to 264th is now open. I don't know, Ken, if it had anything to do with the article that was just in the advance that you'd mentioned, your frustrations with that ongoing process. So we'll have to, everybody, give your props to Ken. But from a chamber standpoint, we've been advocating. It's been a policy that's been on the Langley Chamber's books and the BC network for 9 years now. So we continue to advocate on behalf of, really the whole Fraser Valley and that important corridor. The chamber had the opportunity to meet with Federal Minister Carla Qualtrough, am I saying that right, this week to discuss the upcoming federal budget, providing feedback to the federal government on what recovery from the pandemic looks like in our community and to our local economy. We're also pleased to say that we're again working with TransLink, Township of Langley, BC Manufacturers Association, and other key stakeholders on a transportation plan for the Gloucester area. Businesses that reside in this area are key to the economic recovery of our region and our province. These are just some of the few advocacy issues that we are working on to make it easier for you business owners to focus on your business. If you've got an issue, I've said it before, raise it, within the chamber. That's part of what we are here for. And a year like 2020, and many are expecting like 2021 is going to be. It's no different. So if you have some form of issue that you want raised with any level of government, the chamber is a good place to start. So feel free to contact someone from the office, any of the staff or board members. And once again, if you're a member, we really thank you for your support. And if you're not currently a member, then we hope you please consider supporting the organization that supports you and your business and other businesses in the community. I'd now like to take the opportunity to introduce our speakers, our MLAs this evening. So in no particular order, I'll just the order that it was given to me. I'll start with Andrew. So Andrew was elected MLA for Langley in the 2020 general election. He is Parliamentary Secretary for Skills Training and a member of the Select Standing Committee on Public Accounts. Andrew is a labor lawyer and an active member of the Langley community. He attended the University of the Fraser Valley and earned a Bachelor of Arts from the University of New Brunswick, as well as a Juris Doctor from Dalhousie University. Prior to his election to the legislature, Andrew worked as a legal counsel for Teamsters Local Union number 213 and served as the executive director of the BC Building Trades Council, where he advocated for improved safety standards for construction sites. Andrew has served his community on the University of the Fraser Valley Board of Governors and the City of Langley's Crime Prevention Task Group. Andrew was raised in Langley, where he lives with his wife and young daughter. Welcome, Andrew. And Megan Dykeman was elected MLA for the Langley East in the 2020 general election. She's a member of the Legislative Review Committee, the Select Standing Committee on Legislative Initiatives, and Select Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services. Megan is deeply connected to her community of Langley, where she has worked as a small business owner and farmer, taken on many public service roles, and is raising her 2 children. Before being elected to the provincial office, she served as chair of the Langley Board of Education. First elected in 2011, she served 3 terms as a trustee with the board, working hard to make public education in Langley better for kids and families. Megan holds a master's in international relations from Macquarie University in Sydney, Australia, where her research focused on food security. In 2017, she completed a certificate in negotiation and leadership at Harvard Law School. So please join me in welcoming both Andrew and Megan. Thanks for joining us. Correct. We just want to jump right into questions, Colleen, or?
Sure. Or I was going to suggest that maybe both Megan and Andrew, it's sort of like a fireside chat at this point. You can both unmute and, maybe jump in. I have one quick question that could lead you off. What's been the craziest thing you've discovered about your new life since you became an MLA?
Well, Megan, you want to go first with that?
I was just going to ask you if you wanted to lead us on.
Well, I'll tell a funny anecdote, which is that, it's been very different to be elected an MLA in these times where everything's done right now, like we're doing it over Zoom. And obviously, public health and making sure that we're reducing social contacts and bending the curve is forefront of mind. But it leads to funny situations. So when the legislature was recalled in December, so we could vote on the recovery benefit for British Columbians, which was a $1.4 billion, program to put some money in folks' pockets to help them through a tough time. I was sitting in my bedroom on Zoom with my 2.5-year-old daughter going absolutely ballistic right outside the door because it was bedtime, because that's when the deferred division for the vote happens. And voting on a $1.4 billion program. And you kind of think, oh, well, the trappings and ceremony of the role are really removed. And it kind of leads to funny situations like that.
Absolutely. I'd echo Andrew's thoughts on that. Having come in, it's been 5 months. And many of us have never actually met in person. Yeah. So when you're navigating large decisions and you're sort of moving into your new role, typically, thinking back to elected municipal level, you'd have the benefit of kind of the hallway conversation. So you'd usually have a conference right up front, and where you would really get a chance to ask those questions that you didn't even know you needed to ask would be in the hallway on the way to get some food. And we haven't really had that. So we've been navigating all of this, but it's made some of us within our regions closer because we call each other, we support each other. Andrew and I talk regularly, but it's so strange to think this election took place prior to Christmas, and we're still sort of, as we're moving out until things are safer, many of us just haven't had a chance to be in the same room. So that's part of the craziest, sort of on reflection, the craziest part of it. but I love every minute of it.
Good. What do you see as potentially being the biggest challenges?
In our new roles,
Yeah.
definitely right now we are on, looking at COVID all the time because it's a very present, very serious issue. So really, I think the greatest challenges are going to be ensuring that we support people as we move through this. And it's going to be a focus. The day that we're all vaccinated, things will still require significant support. And I think the greatest challenge is going to be to foresee the type of support that is going to be required as things change and evolve. I think that's going to be the greatest challenge we face. I don't know. What do you think, Andrew?
Oh, I think that's, you've hit the nail on the head, Megan. I mean, that's a very eloquent response, but there's definitely an immediacy to everything right now. And there is a need to be very iterative, which, those of you in the kind of private sector running businesses understand, which is, if the market isn't responding to a product, you've got to change. And so, when you look at the scale and scope and the speed with which new programs are being developed right now, which the civil service, under policy direction from the government and the cabinet are developing programs, one of the things that we really need to be mindful of and are being mindful of as a government is the need to adapt to change and to change quickly. And that's where, organizations like this, and I'm going to give Colleen a whole bunch of kudos and good plugs because Colleen is awesome, and you guys should do whatever you can to hold on to her and keep her there because she's really great. But when you look at things like the recovery grants and eligibility, well, you roll out a program very quickly, and then you need to look at, well, how's it actually working, and then you get feedback from folks like Colleen, who sits on the executive of the BC Chamber, and who's then able to influence the policy in a way that makes it. That fine tunes it. And so I think that, and this dovetails with what Megan was saying about we haven't all met each other yet, right? So there's all these very pressing concerns, very big decisions. There's an immediacy to everything. And you can't just have a hallway conversation or a cup of coffee or a beer. I mean, everything is either much more formally structured because there are formal meetings happening on Zoom, or you're having millions of phone calls, trying to sort through everyone.
Yeah, and I guess that all stem to this, a vaccine related question. We all understand for the economy to open up fully and for us to get back to the new normal that vaccines are certainly necessary. That said, with delays in vaccines and new variants showing up in Canada, what is your government going to do to ensure that British Columbians are on the path to new normal as quickly as possible?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, we need to, and this goes back to my point about immediacy. We're not out of the woods, even when we have the full scale vaccination program going on down in the deeper phase. We still need to be mindful about reducing our contacts and keeping the COVID-19 problem under control, because it's also a systems problem, right? Like there are knock-on effects of overwhelming hospitals and a whole bunch of other, healthcare crises that are attendant with that. So what we need to do is we need to focus on public health, and we are focused on getting to a point where we are all vaccinated by the fall of 2021, and hopefully we can bring some normalcy, back to our lives by then. But as you noted, it's all dependent on federal procurement and the federal programs.
Absolutely, and great answer, Andrew, because that's the key is we're all really in, when it comes to vaccines, that's where we truly are all in this together. We are reliant on an entire system moving from federally, internationally, and getting it to the province and getting people vaccinated. And as you've heard the Premier say, by fall, everybody that would like vaccination will be able to be vaccinated. And what's really important to note is that every single step that we've taken has been in a commitment to reducing the spread of the virus, just adjusting to, unfortunately, right now is a new normal, with a hope that we are returning to the majority of the activities, as Andrew said, by fall. So since the early days in March, when the first public health orders went out in place, we've been committed to protecting British Columbians, and it requires everyone to do their part, remain committed, and stick together in order to stay safe. And as your MLAs, we're pushing hard to, get information to people and to do anything we can to support rolling this out into our communities as soon as possible, because we know how important it is for everyone, from businesses to those of us that just really truly miss our loved ones. So it is something that is, I'd say, 2/3 of every conversation.
Yeah, for the day, we all long for the day when we just talk about the weather again, right?
Right, which we have lots to talk about in BC.
Yeah, right. I guess switching gears a bit, with the Highway 1 widening, I think anybody on the call, anybody that lives in really Surrey to, Hope probably, that's one of the things, or I guess, really at the greater Vancouver area, anyone going on vacation and whatnot. We've seen over the past 5 years that we have had several announcements from various levels of government, regarding the highway expansion from, out to 264th. Is this a project a priority for the government?
Absolutely. And we're very excited today for the announcement that the Highway 1 expansion has gone to the public consultation phase. So our government, as you saw during the election, Premier came right here to Langley to say this is something that's a priority of ours. And so both myself and Andrew, we had the privilege of watching the speed and commitment that our government has to seeing this project go through, and I've attended meetings. And today it went to the public consultation phase, and that information is available on the websites and social media for the March cutoff for feedback and for input from the public. And we are absolutely committed to seeing that go forward. Andrew, do you have anything you want to add to that? Because it's really exciting.
Well, I made a joke with the MODI, with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure staff, that really what the government's doing by widening the highway and bringing SkyTrain in is they're saving marriages. There was a great study a couple of years ago that linked commute times to divorce. If you commute more than half an hour each way, you're twice as likely to get divorced. So, on the one hand, you're talking about asphalt and road and commerce and moving goods and people, but it has a demonstrable impact on people's lives. And I don't just say that in a tongue-in-cheek way. As someone that has been stuck on that stretch of the highway multiple times and had very colorful language about it when I was alone in my car.
Absolutely. And keeping the economy moving, business moving, families together, those are priorities that are very important. And this freeway is integral to that. Are
there any talks of going further eastward with it? I know the priority is to 264th, but are those discussions occurring at all? It's
definitely something that has come up, and there's always a view to look at where the freeway should be expanded to. And at this point, there's discussion about what infrastructure would best support our valley. So it has come up, yes, for sure.
Okay. Anything else to add, either of you, before we switch gears again?
Oh, just keep them coming, Brad.
Oh, perfect. Has your government considered changes to the employer health tax in order to cut costs to businesses as they recover from the pandemic?
Well, Megan, I'll jump in here if that's all right. The employer health tax was introduced when we cut MSP, and really, and as Megan put it earlier, our economic recovery is really about putting people first. And taking the MSP burden off of British Columbians has been a huge relief for a lot of folks. So that being said, acknowledging the tough times that a lot of your members are going through right now, and that just because your business hasn't closed doesn't mean everything's going all right. It might mean that you're making all kinds of sacrifices to keep the doors open for the time being. But there is a whole variety and suite of incentives and tax deferrals and policy programs we've been putting in place to try to alleviate that burden.
In terms of, COVID, what specific support is your government doing to those businesses that have been hit the hardest? Is there anything specific?
Well, and maybe if I can just jump in here quickly, Megan, the restaurant sector has been hit, arguably it's one of the hardest hit sectors, because you've got, businesses that really depend on volume having to cut their numbers to maintain social distancing. So in addition to the, medium and small business grants and a whole variety of other other grants, we are allowing the purchase of liquor at wholesale prices for restaurants, which is a considerable discount, and trying to find ways to help people keep the doors open so that we can continue to have a thriving economy here in BC, or as much as possible in the current context.
Absolutely. And, on that excellent point, most commercial property tax bills have been cut by an average of $255, which saved business an estimated $714 million, helping them get through the crisis, encouraging businesses to hire with a 15% tax credit, eligible new payroll from third to fourth quarter of 2020, which estimated 190 million in incentives for businesses. In addition, helping businesses cash flow by temporarily postponing the carbon tax rate increase and other budget 2020 tax measures, and forgiving hydro bills between April and June 2020 for small businesses that had to close during COVID. Our governments recognize that this is just an incredibly challenging time. Nobody could have predicted the impact of COVID. But what we did recognize is the importance of supporting businesses with tangible supports to help them through that. And our government is continuously looking at and examining options to continue to support businesses, and recognizes that we will be supporting small and medium-sized businesses as we move through this. It's not just going to end like a light switch one day. These are ongoing program support reviews that are being examined every day. And the MLAs sitting at the table are advocating for that. We understand that. As a small business owner myself, as a farmer, I understand the impacts of this to business, and we are, myself and Andrew, are strong proponents for ensuring that we continuously reevaluate and look at new and different ways that we can support businesses through such a trying time.
Yeah, if I could just add to to Megan's point about MLAs at the table. We've also, or John Horgan has appointed my friend Ravi Kahlon to the position of Minister of Jobs, Economic Recovery and Innovation. And so there is someone at the decision-making table whose whole job it is to sit down there and think about how is this helping businesses and small and medium-sized businesses, not just the large ones, and not to write off the large ones because they're very important employers and have a lot of downstream economic effects. But there's somebody there thinking, how is this going to impact these businesses? And I don't think you can. Who's sitting at the table matters. And I think that's a very important piece of the puzzle.
Certainly. Switching gears, I guess, back a little bit to infrastructure. Can you comment on when you think the SkyTrain will be operating in Langley City?
I can tell you as a Langley boy that used to have to take 3 buses to get to the SkyTrain to buy comic books on Granville Street, that I spend I'm in awe of the fact that SkyTrain is going to be coming to Langley. It is a priority for this government. We are currently working closely with TransLink, the Mayor's Council, and our municipal partners around the project, and other partners as well around the project. And I can tell you that capital projects go through many stages, and there's a lot of work that has to be done, but that work is happening right now. And I think as Megan said earlier on, we just had John Horgan out to Langley virtually. So I guess he was still in Victoria. We were in Langley though, but we had him out to Langley virtually for the day last Monday. And one of the things we did is we went to Langley City Council. I know we've got mayor and some councillors on here, and just had a discussion with the premier and mayor and council about the new OCP SkyTrain and the way that infrastructure is going to radically change Langley for the better, and in a lot of ways by creating all kinds of new housing options and just transforming our community. So it's a priority, and it's something we're strongly committed to.
So is there a timeline?
Well, as you know, when you're in the midst of planning, you don't start with the time and work backwards.
Yeah.
You look at the suite of work, the design, the construction, the procurement, and the actual build. And so there will be announcements that happen further and in the future. But right now, what I'll say is we're working on it, and it's a priority. And you've got my commitment that it's a priority.
Excellent. We saw that, Megan. We didn't hear that though. I didn't hear anything. Anything you'd like to add, or you're good on that? Thumbs up is.
I'm good on that. I'll spare us all the sound of the geese for a minute because Andrew's so passionate about that subject. I didn't want to steal that one from him.
Perfect. For either of you, what are your plans to address homelessness in Langley?
Absolutely, I'll take that. I'll start off with that one if you're okay, Andrew. Our government has committed to addressing homelessness in a meaningful and long-lasting way. This is such a challenge, and we've seen it so much more prominent with COVID and the challenges with the cold weather recently. Homelessness is one of those complex issues which has multiple factors that contribute, such as mental illness and addictions. And our government recently announced funding for addictions treatment and recovery services right here on Langley, which we know are a significant contributor to homelessness. So this directly supports the work of Wagner Hills Farm Society and the Vision Quest Recovery Society, which is two of actually 53 organizations that receive support. It's part of a $2 million provincial government funding that was distributed across BC. And the grants were meant to support existing bed-based treatment and recovery services. So today, unfortunately, what we're living with is the failure of previous governments and their reliance on, band-aid approaches or lip service to this really serious issue. So we have to take a multifaceted, holistic approach with this, which ensures that short-term measures are available for safety and longer-term options address the root causes. So with COVID and the recent cold snap, the challenges of homelessness really have become much more complex. And so our government, along with the federal government, has been working hard to ensure that those experiencing homelessness can have a safe place to stay and access to the services they need. So in the longer term, our government, though, has committed to providing more services and programs for mental health, addiction, and other issues that directly contribute to homelessness. Recently, I met with the RCMP, owners of the Travel Lodge, mayor, council, and other partner groups and service groups to have this very discussion. And so as your MLA, my commitment is to continue to have those meetings and to look at what gaps exist. And there are gaps here in our community that need to be filled. And those are ongoing conversations, and we'll continue to have those regular meetings and work with the community to figure out how we can have a real long-term solution to a really complex problem. Andrew?
Well, yeah, and I think, I've got little to add to that because that was such an eloquent statement on, the crux of the issue, which is that it's an incredibly complex issue. It comes down to issues like mental health and addiction, but it could also be, people are going through a tough time right now. Maybe you lose your job or get laid off, or you have trouble making the rent, and you could really be in a kind of marginally housed situation. So, our commitment is to work with the community, to work with council, to work with the mayors, to work with BC Housing. I've had some conversations, and I know Megan has, with Dave Eby, the Minister of Housing and Attorney General. And we need to, make sure that it's not a partisan issue. It's a broader community issue that, we really need to work together to try to solve, because, as Megan pointed out, it is incredibly complex. And, there's I guess you could say, the front-facing problem of the fact that people lack housing. But why do people lack housing? And there's no one answer to that. And we need to make sure that we're doing what we can to try to mitigate that wherever possible.
Excellent. Anything else to add, either of you? Or? Perfect. The question came in specifically for you, Megan. As Langley Township remains a largely rural community with approximately 75% of its land base in the ALR and holds a critical place within a regional food security context, specifically with your personal insights gained as a local farmer and your educational background, how will you advocate for protection of agricultural lands for farming purposes, as opposed to allowing local planning protocols to create land uses that are contrary to maintaining active farming operations?
Absolutely. Thank you. I was so excited when I saw this question. I scrolled to the bottom and I was like, oh, this is wonderful. As a farmer in the township of Langley and an academic with a research focus on food security, I do absolutely agree with recognizing the importance of the ALR. And this pandemic sure has really shone a light on the need for food security to be bolstered in our province. I mean, we all saw the effects tangibly at the grocery store going in and food not being available. Just last week, there was mentioned in the paper that there would be abattoir shutdowns again in Alberta, which does affect here. And this is something that Minister Popham is very passionate about. Anybody who's watched her work will see she is always pointing to the importance of food security. The issues related to food security, though, like many things, are very complex. So preservation of land is one component. However, in addition to land availability, we also need to look at a viable economic environment for farmers, business infrastructure and support, logistical and supply line supports are also required, which means it's a larger picture than just the farm. So a focus on and support for getting young people to want to enter the industry is something else which has challenging barriers of entry in this industry. So we need to support that. There have been many supports which have been put in place to ensure that ALR lands currently are protected and available for farming and not influenced as much by local planning regimes. So what would I do as the MLA for Langley? I'll continue to advocate for a multi-pronged approach for farmers, one where we recognize the importance of this land preservation and maintenance of viable economic environment for farmers. So we have people that want to go onto the farm land and farm it. So it doesn't become an exercise in mining your land or parking trucks. So agriculture is a very important part of the Stronger BC Economic Recovery Plan. And our government has many programs which provide support for agriculture, including the new Small Farm Business Acceleration Pilot Program, which has funding up to $800,000 for business plan coaching for small and new farmers, as well as cost shared funding for commercial farm infrastructure and equipment to increase productivity and sales. And I believe with that multi-pronged approach, you will drive up a need for that protected land more than we've ever seen before, which will then further entrench the importance of the ALR. And I think that we need to work together, the business sector and farmers. Farmers are business people too, and ensure that we have the right economic environment for our farmers. And I think that COVID's really shone light on it. I think it's one of the unfortunate benefits that's come out of that is the importance for local food security.
Perfect. We've got a question from the chat from Frank. Are there any plans to help small abattoirs stay in business in BC so that farmers can grow food and supply individuals and businesses with local BC beef, lamb, and pork products? Can you read that directly out of the chat? Yeah.
Saw that Minister Popham recently made some announcements related to local abattoirs, and part of the Stronger BC is increasing local food security. And I'd be happy, Frank, to provide you with the further details on that support that's going for local production. But there was an announcement very recently related to that.
You weren't going to get through the meeting without Frank Buchholz asking a question.
I was wondering when he was going to show up.
I can send him the certification announcement if that's the one you're referring to, Megan.
Absolutely. And there's some backgrounder documents I can send on to you too, Colleen.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Frank. It's great to see you here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you hit it there in terms of food security, and one of the positives, so to speak, to come from COVID is everybody, I think myself, at least prior to COVID, it was like, food's just, it's there. Every time I go to the grocery store, it's there. You never have to think about it. We're lucky that way, right? Where it brought to light that, it might not always be there, and that it is something relevant to think of. I also think it also brought to light, the importance of shopping local, buying local. I've spent more money on local grocers from local farms and that kind of thing than I ever have, before. Not only to support them, but you also find how much better the quality is. So yeah, no, thanks so much for that.
We always
anything else to add? Yeah.
We always see as a problem somewhere else. We talk about, food aid going to other countries and how our country is so supportive of these challenges in other nations. And to be sitting here, sort of looking on the grocery shelves, and a lot of it was logistical. It had to do with the supply chains or having to shut down a plant. And you often don't see it right away. It may catch up 3 or 4 months later. And that's what's challenging with food shortages. And to be quite practical and honest, if you think about it, there is no population that's angrier than a hungry population. So imagine if this was a sustained issue for weeks. You would have a lot of challenges that you'd be facing just socially. And so this is something that was a very good wake-up call for our province, and our province is uniquely positioned to produce a significant amount of food with our climate. So we really, I think, had a bit of a wake-up call that we really need to support that more, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that was a really apt observation there too, Brad, in terms of the fact that, what this situation, this crisis has exposed is a lack of resiliency in some systems. And what, the focus is really on system design and resiliency, right? As opposed to looking at kind of a narrow view of efficiency that might just be cost, which might make sense, if you're a private actor out doing things, but on a whole system level, you want to have a system that's resilient enough that you don't go hungry.
Oh, for sure. In what ways has the current state of emergency in BC due to COVID-19 allowed our provincial politicians to develop different skill sets that otherwise wouldn't have been required? Any unique skill sets that you or your colleagues have developed as a result of COVID, besides functionality on Zoom?
I was going to say I've gotten very good at unmuting myself on Zoom. I thought about that question for a long time, and in a way, it's difficult to say as a new MLA because you don't have the comparison of having been an MLA in a different time, right? So you've heard the kind of our insight at the beginning on you don't get the hallway conversation. Like the entire idea of lobbying is from accosting people in lobbies and telling them, you'd like getting that few moments of time. But you don't get the kind of conversations with your colleagues that you would normally get. But there is, I think right now, there is a willingness, and I think Megan would agree with this, there's a willingness of just folks generally, the citizens of Langley to engage at a really high level right now. And that's partly because, of the situation that we're in. And it's very different, right? Because it's all phone calls and Zoom meetings, and you're not going to events and speaking to, even right now, we're speaking to Zoom and I can just see the 5 of you. I can't see the other 20 people on the call. And it's not maybe as free flowing as it would be otherwise. So in terms of skill sets, it's really put an emphasis on listening and on a very particular set of skills, and really on being hardworking and tenacious, because you really have to run things down, because you can't just count on being able to grab the minister or being able to grab the premier or something in the hallway and asking them a quick question, right? Which lets you cut through layers of bureaucracy otherwise. It's a very different dynamic in that sense. But I'm finding in terms of engaging with people that the focus right now on government and government's role is really prevalent in folks' minds, and just the level of engagement has just been, very positive.
It's great. That's really interesting, Andrew. I hadn't thought about it that way. It's a really insightful thought. I think that going off what Andrew pointed out there, it's also allowed, and it's been a sort of a byproduct of this, a shift, because we've had to shift to remote delivery. It's actually allowed for more uniform contact. So the delivery of service has been able to be more evenly distributed throughout the province, or with groups that maybe aren't able to attend things. So what's been interesting from sort of a finance committee point of view is where people used to come and present to the finance committee, and we would go out in places. Some of the smaller groups have been more available to come by Zoom. And so it's allowed for us to re-examine things a bit, to see what we'll keep after, because we're able to look sort of post-COVID and say, well, can we incorporate some of these technologies and some of these mechanisms to allow for better and more equitable service for all? So that's something that I felt really, although that might not necessarily be a skill set, it's a change in sort of the way of thinking. Can we maybe take some barriers down so that we're able to provide better, more uniform service throughout the province. So that's one thing that I think has kind of come off it, that came out of what Andrew was saying.
And if I could just jump in
Yeah,
real
go ahead.
quick, Brad, too, and just as you know, Megan's talking, I'm thinking as well as she's talking about the finance committee in Zoom that, you know, we're in the like my anecdote before about my daughter, you know, having a meltdown in the middle of a vote. Like we're you know, we're rotating in and out of the legislature on a schedule, but we're largely in the constituencies. And so it's not a skill set, but thinking about in terms of becoming an MLA in this era versus another, is there's a, you know, an advantage, I think, you know, to us as new MLAs in terms of, you know, getting out there in the community, but also to the community in that we're not off in Victoria for the most part. So we're able to spend more time, you know, dealing with constituency issues than we otherwise would.
I do have to say, though, I have picked up one skill that if farming or politics is a direction I need to move away from, I've learned the skill of lighting. So I may have a backup plan in the film industry as like a light rigger, because I can now do multiple lights for different days. So I just wanted to keep that one in my back pocket as a backup option.
I should hire you because, as you can tell, I haven't learned that skill.
I know what you're getting for Christmas. A ring light.
I do want to add to Brad tonight that both of Megan and Andrew actually had to ask for permission to miss a full caucus meeting tonight to keep their date with us this evening. So they have juggled their schedules to be here because we kind of set our date. And so I did want to thank them for juggling that as well and making their constituents a priority. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent. You can hear me still? My AirPods died, so I just want to, okay. Perfect. We've only got a couple more questions here, so we're looking good for time. So I guess first off, what do you feel are the best ways to support other local businesses or to connect with other local businesses?
You're going to say something there, Megan? Sorry.
I was just going to ask, that's a question that I looked at, and I sort of had 4 different directions I could have gone in that. I was wondering if you could just provide a little bit more clarity. Are you sort of thinking of how the province can, or are you thinking just generally in reaching businesses during COVID? I just want to make sure I answer the question.
I think it's more so, you know, what can the province do to best support local businesses? And then if you have suggestions of ways to connect, that the province can connect with other local businesses, or how businesses can connect with the province potentially.
Absolutely. And isn't that just, and I'm sure Andrew will agree with me and jump in here, it's one of the biggest challenges is connecting with people. And COVID's created some barriers. When the grant came out, I actually printed off a good pile of them. And I actually went business door to door and dropped them off by hand. And I know Andrew will tell you about how he's connected with his businesses in his community. One of the things that I think that we need to do is a multi-pronged approach, sort of going right back to our roots. You know, your MLAs on the ground connecting, working with organizations like yours that know which sectors really need to be reached. The chamber plays an integral role in this. You really are a voice for business for us to understand these are the things that we're missing. We need to ensure that we continue our consultations to identify businesses maybe that we've missed, and continue to offer opportunities for businesses to come together and share thoughts and concerns, I think are really important. The more people feel like they're at the table and part of the conversation, the more that we will be able to cast a wider net and connecting with people. I'll hand it over to Andrew so I don't take all the time, because I know
we're and you know, I'd agree that the best way to connect and support local businesses starts with listening. And being available. And, you know, I can tell you, and I think I speak for both of us right now, that our door is open, metaphorically right now, you know, but we're only a phone call away. And it's so important to stay connected and stay in touch, because it's the business community, as you all know, is so diverse, so complex. There are so many facets to it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, it's incumbent on us to do the outreach to make sure that we're talking to the business community and to yourselves and other folks, and making sure that we hear those concerns. And I wanted to just make a comment that Colleen, I'm going to pick on Colleen a little bit. Colleen said at the beginning that, we wouldn't be here, you meaning the chamber in this meeting, we wouldn't be here without the members of the chamber. But I would just say that we wouldn't be here in the economic situation we are in right now without your members. The hard work and sacrifices that your members are making to keep the doors open, to keep the economy running, is what has prevented economic collapse in this province and in this country. And so, to a comment I made earlier, that just because your business hasn't closed doesn't mean you're not having a hard time. We get that, we hear you. But at the end of the day, I guess my message would be, don't be strangers. Don't be afraid to come kick down our door and talk to us. I come from the field of law and labor relations, and that business is all about compromise, and it's all about relationships. And I hope you'll consider this in this meeting the beginning of a relationship.
Absolutely. I'd echo what Andrew says. The wisest investment any government can make during economic challenges is in your small, medium-sized businesses. They employ people in your community. They are the ones that show up and support events and people and organizations. They are the first to step up when disaster hits, because often supply lines are shut down. So the people who live in your community and own small businesses are the engine of the economy. It's not about investing further in government services. It's about investing further in things that support businesses to ensure that our economy can keep moving forward. And I echo what Andrew says, the door is always open, phone, Zoom, however, because it's about us serving our community and making sure that we are here to support the people who live, work, and play in Langley in our respective ridings, and that you have that provincial voice to ensure that we're moving forward and coming out of a full economic recovery and building our economy as we move forward.
Excellent. Last question really before we wrap up for each of you, and just a simple one. What are your local priorities for the upcoming year? Andrew, I'm guessing the SkyTrain fits somewhere in there.
Well, it's number one. It's number one, and I talked a bit about relationships there earlier too, and working. We've got a great mayor and council in Langley City, and in the township as well. And so, working with folks and working with the community, and a lot of people are going through a very tough time right now, and making sure we're there and that we're listening and building those relationships is on par with the SkyTrain in terms of priority, is what I would say.
Excellent. And yourself, Megan?
Absolutely. Probably during my campaign, people were pretty tired of hearing my priorities because they were repeated every time. That strong economic recovery, it really is. And both Langleys are so entrepreneurial. And we really are a small, medium-sized business economy here in the Langleys. And that is a top priority, supporting our agricultural sector, because Langley is so much within the ALR. Like, we have 75 to 80% of our land in there, and it is part of our stronger BC recovery as food security has come to shone even a brighter light than before. We need new schools in Langley. We're a growing economy. We're a growing community, and we have a need for more schools. So those are priorities, and mental health and getting that freeway so we can keep Langley moving, and ensuring that we have that support, those social supports within our community for people who are struggling.
Excellent. Well, that concludes it from my end in terms of questions, unless if we've got a couple minutes, if anybody wants to put one in the chat quick. If there's anything on your mind.
The last 4 minutes is the time for the difficult policy questions.
Which Andrew will be answering.
Otherwise, if you don't want to be on the spot or can't think of anything now, or something comes up after, like I said, and Megan mentioned just moments ago that the chamber are a good conduit. If you have questions, policies, anything you want advocated on your behalf or raised on your behalf, feel free to reach out to myself, any of the other board members, or Colleen and anyone on the staff. We'd be happy to do what we do best. Or Colleen would be happy. I shouldn't say we. Colleen should be happy. We'll be happy to do what she does best. Um,
Policy season.
and I will support her in that. But yeah, otherwise, Colleen, unless you have anything you want to say before we close besides thank you.
I just want to say thank you, Brad, for taking the time out to help us out with hosting our fireside chat without the fire. To both our MLAs, thank you very much for bouncing out of the caucus meeting to come tonight. We really appreciate it. We know that your time is valuable. And I also want to take one more moment to thank our dinner meeting partner, Moxie's. If you didn't order tonight, please take some takeout this next week or so, do a pickup order and help out your local restaurants. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, and we'll see you all again very soon. Thanks very much.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for having us. It was an honor.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye now. See you again.